Every person believes they are strong until life decides to test them. It may come in the form of failure, betrayal, loss, or a moment when the world seems to turn its back on you. In those moments, titles do not matter. Wealth does not matter. Even the praise of others becomes meaningless. What remains is only one question. Is your mind strong enough to endure? Many people search for strength in the wrong places. They seek comfort, approval, and easy victories. But comfort weakens the spirit, and approval from others is as unstable as the wind. The mind that depends on these things will eventually shatter when hardship arrives. Yet there exists another path, a quieter, stronger path. It is the path of discipline over emotion, clarity over chaos, and control over impulse. Those who walk this path learn a simple truth. Life cannot break a person who has already trained their mind to stand firm against its storms. The world will always bring difficulty. This is not misfortune. It is the nature of existence. Obstacles appear without warning, people disappoint us, and plans collapse despite our efforts. But the person who understands the laws of the mind does not complain about these events. Instead, they use them as tools to strengthen their character. True resilience is not born in a single moment of courage. It is built quietly day after day through habits that shape how we think, how we respond, and how we endure. And there are certain habits, simple, powerful disciplines that can transform an ordinary mind into one that cannot be shaken by fear, anger, or adversity. Today we will explore 7 of these habits. 7 practices that, when lived consistently, forge a mind that remains calm in chaos, steady in hardship, and unbreakable in the face of life itself. People often believe strength is something that can be seen with the eyes. They admire the person who speaks the loudest, who dominates a room, or who appears fearless in front of others. To the outside world, this looks like power, but time has a way of revealing the truth. When adversity arrives, when circumstances become harsh and unpredictable, the kind of strength that relies on appearance quickly fades. The loud voice becomes quiet. Confidence built on praise begins to crumble. What once looked powerful reveals itself to be fragile. True strength does not live in the body, nor in the approval of the crowd. It lives quietly in the mind. It is the invisible ability to remain steady when emotions attempt to pull you in every direction. It is the discipline to pause when anger demands action, and the wisdom to stay calm when fear tries to take control. A person who has mastered their mind carries a power that cannot easily be taken away. Life constantly offers moments that test this mastery. Someone may insult you unfairly. A plan you worked on for months may collapse in a single day. Circumstances beyond your control may disrupt the future you carefully imagined. In such moments, the untrained mind reacts instantly. It becomes angry, frustrated, or overwhelmed. It blames people, complains about fate, and searches desperately for something to control. But the person who has trained their mind understands something different. They recognize that while events themselves may not be in their power, their response always is. To master the mind is to create space between the event and the reaction. Instead of being carried away by emotion, you observe it. Instead of surrendering to frustration, you examine it. This small pause, almost invisible to others, becomes the foundation of real strength. Because the person who controls their thoughts controls their actions. And the person who controls their actions shapes the direction of their life. Such mastery is not achieved through talent or luck. It is built slowly through daily effort. Each time you choose patience over anger, clarity over impulse, and reason over chaos, you strengthen the quiet force within you. Over time, the mind becomes disciplined, steady, and difficult to disturb. While the world around you may remain unpredictable, your inner state becomes something far more powerful. Stable, deliberate, and under your command. Life does not move in a straight line of comfort and certainty. No matter how carefully a person plans their future, there will always be moments that disrupt it. Difficulties appear without asking for permission. Sometimes they arrive quietly, through small disappointments that slowly wear down our patience. Other times they appear suddenly, like a storm that overturns everything we believed was stable. Loss, rejection, illness, betrayal, failure. These are not rare events reserved for a few unfortunate people. They are part of the shared human experience. Many people spend their lives hoping they can somehow avoid these moments. They search for a life where nothing goes wrong, where every effort is rewarded and every relationship remains peaceful. But the truth is that life has never promised such conditions. Expecting a life free from hardship is like expecting the sea to remain calm forever. Waves will rise, storms will form, and the wind will change direction without warning. When people encounter these challenges for the first time, they are often shocked. They feel as if something unfair has happened specifically to them. Their minds become filled with questions. Why did this happen? Why now? Why to me? These thoughts can easily lead to frustration and bitterness, because the mind begins to fight against reality itself. It wishes the situation were different, but wishing does not change the nature of the world. A wiser perspective begins by accepting a simple truth. Life will test every person, not because the world is cruel, but because challenge is woven into the structure of existence. Just as the body becomes stronger through resistance, the character of a person is shaped through difficulty. Without struggle, patience cannot develop. Without disappointment, resilience cannot grow. Without uncertainty, courage cannot reveal itself. The person who understands this does not walk through life expecting ease. Instead, they prepare their mind for the inevitable challenges that will come. When obstacles appear, they do not collapse under the weight of surprise. They recognize the moment as another part of the journey that all people must face. Their focus shifts from asking why the hardship exists to asking how they will respond to it. In this way, difficulties lose some of their power to disturb the mind. They are no longer seen as personal attacks from fate, but as natural events that offer an opportunity to practice patience, endurance, and inner discipline. The person who accepts this reality moves through life with a steadier spirit, aware that while pain and uncertainty may arrive, the strength to face them can always be cultivated within. Most people believe their suffering comes from difficult circumstances. They blame the situation, the people around them, or the unpredictable nature of life itself. When something goes wrong, the mind immediately begins to resist what has already happened. It complains about the unfairness of events and spends its energy wishing reality were different. But this resistance creates a deeper struggle than the original problem ever could. There are many things in life that lie completely outside our control. The actions of others, the opinions they hold, the sudden changes in fortune, the passing of time. These forces move according to their own nature, yet the untrained mind insists on fighting them. It becomes angry at people who behave poorly, frustrated by events that cannot be reversed, and anxious about outcomes that have not yet occurred. In trying to control what cannot be controlled, the mind exhausts itself. When this habit continues long enough, it slowly weakens a person. Every unexpected difficulty feels like a personal attack. Every disagreement feels like an injustice. Every change feels like a threat to stability. The person begins to feel as if the world is constantly working against them. But in truth, much of their suffering comes not from the events themselves, but from their refusal to accept the limits of their influence. The moment a person begins to understand this distinction, something important changes in their thinking. They realize that life becomes far lighter when they stop fighting battles that were never theirs to win. Instead of trying to control every outcome, they focus their attention on what truly belongs to them, their thoughts, their decisions, and their actions. This shift requires humility. It asks the mind to admit that it cannot command the world to behave according to its wishes, but it also brings a quiet kind of freedom. When a person releases the need to control everything around them, they recover a great deal of energy and clarity. Situations that once caused anger or anxiety lose their ability to disturb the inner state so deeply. Gradually, the mind becomes calmer. It no longer reacts wildly to every change in circumstance. Instead, it observes events as they unfold and chooses its response carefully. By accepting what cannot be controlled and directing effort only toward what can be shaped, a person begins to build a form of resilience that many never discover. A stability that remains firm even when the world around them shifts without warning. There is a common belief that resilience is something people are born with. Some are thought to naturally possess a strong mind, while others are assumed to be more fragile by nature. But this idea misunderstands how strength truly develops. The mind, like the body, changes according to the habits it practices every day. A person who consistently trains their thoughts, disciplines their reactions, and reflects on their actions slowly builds a level of inner stability that once seemed impossible. Long before the noise and distractions of the modern world, thoughtful observers of human nature understood this truth. They saw that people often become prisoners of their emotions because they never learned how to guide them. Anger, fear, and desire take control not because they are too powerful, but because the mind has never been trained to respond differently. Without discipline, emotions move like a strong current, carrying a person wherever they please. But these observers also notice something else. When a person begins to practice certain mental habits regularly, their entire way of experiencing life begins to change. Instead of reacting automatically, they become more aware of their thoughts. Instead of allowing frustration to dominate their decisions, they pause and consider the situation more carefully. Small moments of awareness gradually turn into a steady pattern of self-control. These habits are not complicated, yet they require commitment. A person might begin by examining their thoughts at the end of each day, asking themselves where they reacted with patience and where they allowed emotion to take over. Another habit might involve reminding oneself each morning that the day will bring challenges and preparing the mind to face them calmly rather than with surprise. Over time, these simple practices shape how the mind responds to the world. At first, the changes may seem small. A person might notice they are slightly less irritated by minor inconveniences. They might find it easier to remain calm when someone speaks harshly or when plans fail unexpectedly. But as these habits continue, the transformation becomes more noticeable. The mind grows steadier, reactions become more deliberate, and situations that once caused distress lose their ability to dominate the inner state. Through consistent practice, a person begins to realize that resilience is not a mysterious trait reserved for a few individuals. It is the natural result of training the mind through daily habits that encourage clarity, patience, and discipline. The quiet repetition of these practices slowly reshapes the mind, strengthening it in ways that cannot be easily shaken by the events of life. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize that much of their suffering cannot be blamed entirely on the world around them. Circumstances may be difficult, people may behave unfairly, and events may unfold in ways that feel deeply disappointing. Yet beneath all of these experiences lies another truth that is often uncomfortable to accept. The state of our mind is largely shaped by the way we choose to think about what happens to us. Many people spend years waiting for the world to change before they allow themselves to feel at peace. They believe their happiness will arrive when circumstances become easier, when people treat them better, or when success finally appears. Until then, they feel justified in their frustration, their anger, and their dissatisfaction. In this way, their emotional state becomes completely dependent on forces outside their control. But the moment a person begins to take responsibility for their thoughts, something important shifts inside them. They start to understand that while events themselves may not be within their power, the interpretation of those events always is. Two people can experience the same difficulty and walk away with completely different states of mind. One may see only injustice and defeat, while the other sees a challenge that demands patience and growth. Taking responsibility for one's thoughts does not mean denying pain or pretending that hardship does not exist. Difficult experiences still affect us, and emotions still arise naturally in response to them. What changes is the way the mind handles those emotions once they appear. Instead of allowing frustration or fear to dominate every decision, the mind learns to examine them calmly. This kind of responsibility requires honesty with oneself. It asks a person to recognize when their anger comes from wounded pride rather than true injustice. It asks them to admit when their anxiety comes from imagining outcomes that have not yet occurred. It asks them to pause and question whether their reaction is helping them move forward or simply keeping them trapped in resentment. As this awareness grows, the mind becomes more deliberate in how it responds to the world. Complaints become less frequent, because the person realizes that complaining rarely improves the situation. Blame becomes less necessary, because attention shifts toward what can actually be improved through action. Slowly, the individual moves away from being controlled by circumstances and toward becoming the one who decides how those circumstances will shape their character.